Hello and welcome back to my channel. Today I think we're in a position where we can almost brace ourselves for the start of the campaign. So this is where it becomes serious. We get in and about it. So I have on the menu for today this item 5 on my checklist, the 9 steps to a campaign. Item 5, generate the inn that the characters are based in with a complement of patrons and occupants. Now, we had a little bit of a talk about the inn last time, and I'm a defender of the starting inn. So I hopefully, by this demonstration that's going to be brought to you, justify its appearance as a prominent part of this list and why it should be up there with anything else. So before we do that though, I would quite like to look at our characters and see what we need to do with them. I'll just get that out. There we go. Now, I would quite like to understand almost the circumstances and the reasons for these characters being associated with each other in the first place, and why would they appear in this location. So we have them, let's get my map. We have, just to recap, we have Lindris, the elf. He's come up the military road and is now in Marston, staying at this inn, which we're going to generate and give a name for. We have Tristan Shadowblade, our half-elf. He is in Marston. He's a resident. He's been brought up there, so he knows it very well. He has decided to take up residence in the inn too and adopt the lifestyle of an adventurer. Now that's a step up in the social hierarchy for Tristan. He has now committed to 100 gold pieces per level as being the consequence, because that's what adventurers need to do. So he's going to have to generate some resources. We'll come to, this is a very interesting part of the Gygaxian economic system, where suddenly there is a predicament, a cash flow predicament, I would call it, for the adventurers, that in order to maintain quite a bullish lifestyle of at least 100 gold pieces per level a month, they have to have a revenue stream, and the revenue stream being dungeon delving. It's not, I suppose, if you were the bank manager and you were trying to give a loan to this prospective, or say a venture capitalist trying to invest in this, it is what you would call a high risk investment. Any player character, because the return is potentially exponential, but maybe 9 times out of 10 it's going to end in disaster. But hopefully we were going to buck the trend. So we've got our 2 characters, and then Dagobert the Holy. He is a resident of Hawksmoor as part of the chapter, and he's living his life as being a devoted follower of Bane, god of war. He's got his mace and everything. Now, just almost to give a kind of rationale why these characters would come together, I thought we just need just a little bit more backstory. So I thought this would be a good opportunity to maybe bring in a concept of a patron. Now, I don't know if patron's a very strong concept in, say, a role-playing game like Traveller, because it's all about patrons and the missions and the jobs that they give to the travellers or player characters. I'd like to bring in this concept, which was a very much of a medieval idea of patronage. So if we take Tristan, he is living in Marston. He has as his tutor, Jasper. So if we go back to Lord Seward, I should just get my folder over here, Marston. Now Lord Seward has, as part of his host, Jasper Silent Walker, a level 8 thief, and he has now relinquished some of his thieving past and is now in charge of special operations training. But Jasper has befriended and taken under his wing Tristan. And we find out that there's a bit more to why Jasper has befriended Tristan. Jasper, in his adventuring life with Seward many years ago, as part of that party, there was an female elf magic user, a beautiful elf enchantress, an absolute vision, high elf, and Jasper, he was secretly in love with her. Now what's happened is that she's gone back to the elven kingdoms. I think they almost realized this isn't going to work. Look, you're going to die, and I could go on for thousands of years. So unfortunately, they had to part. Her heart was broken, his heart was broken. But ever since, Jasper has been very interested and favourable. He has a favourable disposition to elves. So lo and behold, Lindris comes up the military road, and Jasper is dying to speak to him. He said, "Do you know anything about such and such, whoever the name of the elf lady was?" Lindris doesn't, because it's not part of one of his clans. But as a byproduct, they become friends. So that has kind of gelled Lindris and Tristan together under the patronage of Jasper. Now, if you think about it, this is a very useful thing for both Tristan and Lindris to have such a high level patron in society. And that was the way that, if you look at a medieval society, patronage was a very important part of the basically how people got on. There was no concept of meritocracy. So it wasn't based on how good you were, but it was based on who you knew. So the fact that they know someone as important as Jasper, who is part of the hierarchy, this bodes well for them to get a more favourable ear, say, from the authorities. So that has got established both Lindrin and Tristan together in this inn, living there. With regard to Daggerbird, so Daggerbird's out in Hawksmoor. He comes to a realization, which quite a lot of clerics in his position do, based on their training. They are almost like a military order. He decides that he wants to go out on what's known as their mission. So this is what they allow in this church, is they expect their clerics to, once they reach level 1, to want to go out into the world and spread the word of Bane, which basically means bash people over the head, evil people over the head with a mace, and bring rewards back to yourself and the church, because the church will probably get 10% of it as a tithe. So the chapter, just coming back to Hawksmoor, the chapter house leader calls Dagobert in and says, "Look, I realise that I've heard that you're not really too happy here now, and you want to go out into the world." And Dagobert says, "Yes, I want to do that." And he says, "Well, I'll give you some advice. Go to Marston and associate yourself with other adventurers, like-minded individuals who want to go out and do what you want to do. And as I say, spread the word of Bane in the process." So Dagobert takes this to heart, and that's the reason he ends up in the inn. And he realizes that Lindris and Tristan are adventurers, budding adventurers who want to head out into the wilds, and they befriend each other. So there we have the setup. These three adventurers linked by a common bond of adventure. Okay. Stage 1. So stage 2 is the inn generation. And what I have is some actual rules typed out. Just to give you a bit of context to these. The purpose of these inn generation rules is to it's part of the overall design that I want to have as part for the solo game, but I also wanted to generate a kind of fun and an interesting environment for the characters to interact, and there'd be like a kind of flow of ideas. So I've got this little kind of almost like laboratory with my characters placed in it, and all these variable factors come in, other elements and different occupants and people, and these are all playing off each other randomly, so that you're going to have this interplay of things. And if you it's like any scientific experiment, if you just let it all kind of get mixed up together, in the end it's going to form like maybe new compounds or whatever. I'm not a scientist, I don't really know what I'm talking about, but using the kind of the metaphor of or the analogy of a scientific experiment, that's kind of what we're doing with this inn. There's an input in to get, there's a kind of a mixing of the different ingredients, and hopefully there's an output that we can interpret for the game. Okay, so the first thing we need to do is think about the appearance of the inn. Now, this is to get. You remember yesterday I said there's no way I'm going to have glossy pictures, and I think by I've seen it on the internet. I've seen lots of pictures of fantasy inns, because you can look it up. You put it in the browser, fantasy tavern, and you get all these beautiful pictures of colourful fantasy inns, multi-story, and whatever. I don't think that helps, because I don't want a glossy picture of it. I want to visualize it in my head first. So it's almost to preempt this visualization, we're going to use this generation system to bring elements together so that we actually build our own picture. I'm kind of reminded, say an anecdote that I can bring to this. If you remember you obviously will, Lord of the Rings. And personally, I think I've read the Fellowship about I think it's about 3 times. I think I've read the entirety of Lord of the Rings about twice, but I've always liked the Fellowship, and because I've read them over a time period. Like the first time I read the Fellowship, there was no films out. Um, the most we had a radio adaptation of the Lord of the Rings. BBC ran a series of adaptations over the radio, and I built up then a picture of um, what these characters look like, what Aragorn looked like, what Frodo looked like, just through my own imagination. So that was kind of locked in, and it probably had influences of like 1970s television and children's things and all sort, mythology and all that sort of stuff. But it was all locked in with a kind of view. So when I read Lord of the Rings first time, I had my own vision of what say Aragorn looked like. The next time I read it, I had already seen the was it the Ralph Bakshi film, the animated one, and John Hurt played Aragorn. And when I read the book, I could not stop seeing and hearing John Hurt in the role of Aragorn. And my original view of what Aragorn would look like was kind of suppressed. I wouldn't say it was eliminated, but it was suppressed, and I found it difficult to get emerged. It was even more so when I read The Fellowship the next time, because by that stage I'd seen the Peter Jackson films, and with Viggo Mortensen, and he had such a profound impact on that, in the portrayal of Aragorn, that he became, when I was reading the book, I saw Viggo Mortensen. So what I'm trying to say is, this original view that you have has a profound effect on how you interpret things, but it can be so easily superseded by an image or a visual thing. So if I gave you a visual of a fantastic fantasy, and that's what you have, so I'd quite like to establish what this place looks like, and based on the location. So we've said that Marston is up on this mountain, and my description of Marston has so far been, Marchton, has been, it's a fortified mountain village surrounding a central keep built into the mountainside. And remember from one of our earlier discussions, when we were thinking about the almost like the history of Marchton, and the fact that it was on this military road, there was a feeling that this had already been occupied before and it was abandoned. Say when the Empire fell, there was fallout from the Badlands. The people decided we're just not going to stay here anymore, but they left all the buildings, and because the level of culture had been high, a lot of the buildings were like stone buildings, and they were in good repair, and they'd been well maintained. There was like bath facilities and all that good kind of Roman stuff. And that was all left. And when the people came back to recolonize it in the last, say, 50 years or so, they've used the infrastructure that's already there, and they've used that to build up what they want. So they've decided that they want certain civic buildings, and they want a very strong kind of central hub, communal hub, which is their inn. Now this inn has this inn that the people have decided to rebuild is, as I say, the central hub. So it's a big square. It almost looks like it's semi-fortified. So it's made of stone. We're talking about covering a big area, lots of rooms. So when you come in through the front door, you've got this large hall with a big bar. Well, when I say bar, it's like a long bench at the far end, where we have the landlord and his good lady. So this is probably where I want to bring in the actual rules themselves. Actually, well, no, I did forget when I was talking about this vision. I also remember this is probably more relevant to the actual Advanced Dungeons and Dragons. One of our first adventures was down. It was into a kind of Moria-esque mega dungeon. There was an ancient dwarf city, and I think we had to rescue the king, the dwarf king, from and this was actually an adventure that I had my gnome assassin, Greenface the Throat Slitter, and he made his debut appearance, and he was really quite amazing in it. But that aside, my visualization of dwarves was based on this picture. So I had all that in my kind of muscle memory. And certainly when I was reading like The Lord of the Rings and all that sort of stuff, that was all obliterated when Peter Jackson came along and had all these rough speaking Scottish dwarfs coming in. Gimli, I'll give him credit. He's probably the best of the bunch. I think probably Gimli is the one that's played in the original films. But the ones in The Hobbit, it's a bit of a stretch, really, isn't it? Some of them are really quite strange. So I think I'd rather keep to, for the purposes of my game, this is what dwarves look like. And these are real dwarves, aren't they? They look really kind of dour, and they just don't, they mean business. They're going to mine away there. So sorry, I meant to talk about that. Right, back to, I'm going to actually show you the rules. So this is my starting in generation rules. So what do they cover? These act as, so the inn at the start, these act as bases for starting characters. So that's their purpose. This is the raison d'etre of the starting inn. This is what we want. We want a safe place. They receive the 100 gold pieces per month per level maintenance charge. So they basically rake in this revenue stream that the characters are going to generate. And this is one of the reasons why this inn is so well maintained. It's got some very fine internal probably woodwork and all that sort of stuff. The rooms are very nice. It's a high standard. So what we've done is, first step we do is provide a description of the inn's appearance and scale, which I think we've probably done. Like I've described it, it's a very solid stone structure. It looks as though it could act as a fortress if it was attacked. It's well maintained, not luxurious, but of a high standard. The next thing we do is we look at the innkeeper and his staff. And what I am keen to do with this is let's actually start drawing up. Just get that piece of paper. Our starting in. So we'll call this, just for the time being, starting in. Name to be decided. And our starting in is the structure. I don't have to recount that now and write it. I can do it after the event. So it's just a large stone building. that'll do for now. You get the rest of it, the gist. The innkeeper. So what we do is we have an innkeeper, a landlord, and I quite like this idea of the husband-wife dynamic. So we have a landlady too. So we have a landlord and a landlady. And then we also have, we generate some personality for them. So we have this dynamic going on, which already starts something. And everyone can relate to the husband-wife dynamic. Everybody experiences that. So we can immediately play on that dynamic. We also want to generate some staff. So, and these staff might be their children. So you might have, say, 3 daughters, and this is again another kind of fantasy trope. You have the beautiful daughters, and the characters are vying for their affection type thing. I'm not really saying that we're going to have any of that type of thing going on. It's maybe some romance on a kind of platonic level, but that's about it. So we've got one staff. So they've either got one child, or they've just got a person. And what we'll do is we'll say it's a 50-50 for male female. So it is a male. So that's 1 to 50 is a male. Okay. Right, on the personality. So first of all let's give him a name. I had in my campaign Fredegar, and I quite like Fredegar, and we'll call her Martha. Okay, so Fredegar is the landlord, Martha's the landlady. They need some personality, so we go to our non-NPC tables, which is always good fun. And you could really go to town on these things. You could generate all sorts of things. But probably the general traits is what we want to look at first. So if you can see that, yeah, that's it. We draw a D12 and a D6. So a D12 and a D6. So Fredegar's general tendency, he is, and a 2, he is perceptive. Okay, that's an interesting one, isn't it? Because you maybe wouldn't think that, so he's perceptive. So he's a shrewd operator. He knows when he's looking around his clientele, his customers, he knows just the right time to serve them and what they're thinking, and he can detect if there's going to be any trouble in his establishment. So that's probably a very useful thing. He's really quite a wily landlord. Now let's have a look at his wife, and she rolls. That's 15. She is opinionated and contrary. Well, what can you say? Opinionated. See, we can already think about lots and lots of scenarios with those types of attributes or tendencies, general tendencies. So we've already set up a dynamic. We've got a very shrewd and wily landlord. He's probably quite reserved, and although at times he can really turn on the charm and get people happy, and he just knows the right time to do things, to interject. And then we have this rather probably opinionated, means that she always thinks she knows best. She knows everything about everything. She's got an opinion on everything, and most of all, she wants you to know about it. So that's our personnel already. We don't really need to do the. We could do actually. Let's do 1 to 4, it's an actual child of theirs. So no, it's an employee, a male employee that they've got to do all the running around. Now, this might be a wee bit unrealistic. There might be more kind of servants, but from the point of view of a significant individual, there's this one guy, and he's probably in charge. Okay. I've lost my notes. Here we go. The next thing, select a name for the establishment. Okay, so with the name selection, you could use something on the internet, all this random stuff. But remember, we kind of want to get away from our dependency on 21st century technology. We're back in the analog age of record players and all that good stuff. So we don't have a random. We don't even know what that is. We don't know what a computer is. These things have not been invented yet. So what do? We could use some of the tools already in front of us. And what better tool than the monster manual? We could say, in fact, the one I favour is the green dragon. So that is a monster in the monster manual. So the name, we could call it the green dragon. But what if we wanted to say, call it something else? Is there anything appropriate in here that we could look at? We look at the index. Is this going to work, this type of thing? It was just an idea of mine, and I didn't even test it. I think the only one I was thinking about before was the manticore. The manticore's tail could be one. But I don't know. The red salamander. The sea hag doesn't really sound too clever, does it? Yeah. The sea lion. The shambling mound. I don't think that would be a very good advertising. No. Well, maybe you get the gist. If we can use the tools available, or you just use your head, because say in Britain a lot of pubs are called the Red Lion. So think of a big nasty animal and just put a colour in front of it. So that's what we've done here. We've thought of a big nasty animal, a dragon. Well, I don't know if it's an animal. It's a kind of serpentine sort of thing. And we just put green in front of it. Simple. Okay, green dragon, Fredegar, landlord, Martha, the bossy, the opinionated landlady, and their servant, who we can call, I don't know, Seymour. That sounds good, doesn't it? Seymour. He's a bit shady, sort of slinking around, but he's good at his job. So that's why he's employed. Okay, so we've selected the name. What about some atmosphere? And what better way to provide atmosphere is to have some entertainment. So we can select with a D4 who's coming that evening, or as a feature maybe that week, to the inn. So we'll do a D4, and we got a singer-dancer. Okay, so the entertainment. So we've got this singer that can dance as well. So there's quite often some beautiful haunting singing going on. Maybe she's got a harp as well, and she's playing her harp. There's and then when things are either, the good thing about entertainers is they can judge the mood, so they will be able to gauge, is this place a bit lively? In that case, the good old kind of sing song, and she dances around and does the kind of gypsy thing and all that type of stuff, or is there a bit of a morose feel? and then she'll do this sort of lament type, mournful singing about dead heroes and going away into battle and never coming back and all that sort of stuff. Very kind of Scottish sort of thing that we'd be doing. So on the other ones, I was thinking, your classic troubadour or minstrel. You could imagine that playing away in the background, and the troubadour singing about kind of bardic things. The storyteller. Now that could be a good one for just giving some, almost like, you can imagine the equivalent of giving a rendition of Beowulf, or they're talking about heroes of this age and time, or maybe it's about like a tragic love story, a wee bit like maybe Jasper. This might actually bring a tear to Jasper's eye if he's there talking about a lost romance between an elf and a human, and it's very sad. Or maybe they're into like funny stories. They probably didn't do jokes in the Middle Ages, but they might have had things like, I don't know, the orc, the gnoll, and the goblin went into a bar. That, the equivalent of that. And it could be as boring as, to avoid the sun or something. But the audience are going to love that type of stuff. Or maybe. So you get the idea. The idea of this is just to give us a bit of atmosphere. On the right, so I always thought as well, give some details of the food being served and the drinks on offer. So with I'll get my folder again. I made a note. I've got so many folders over here, it's all falling over the place. I made a note of Marchton, and what were they known for? Food and cooking. And I thought, because they were near this, sorry, I'm all over the place today. Because they were near this this long lake, I thought they could catch, the catch of the day is trout, and they're noted for these amazing trout that's in here, and they can do an amazing trout something. With I don't know, they wouldn't have potatoes, but they'd have it with some sort of root vegetable or something, and it's amazing because these people, boy, they might be poor, but boy can they cook, and they love that kind of thing, making the most out of their dishes. So that's one thing that can be on the menu that you can talk about. And then the other thing I thought, remember we talked about this being moorland. Well, why not they catch some grouse and pheasant, or something that flies around here. They've got their crossbows out. Maybe even Lord Seward comes out with his rapid firing crossbow, and takes down several brace of grouse. They take it back and put it on the spits, and my goodness, it's very tasty. So that's another thing. Or on the liquor side, what about Hawksmoor beer? These chapter houses and monasteries and things, they're noted for brewing. So back in the Middle Ages, that's what they did. So probably the friars and the monks drank quite a lot of what they produced, but whatever surplus they had has ended up in Marston. So it's that type of, it's almost like it's trivial information, but it's quite, when you're writing that down, when you're actually making notes, this is all kind of going into your brain, and building this picture. So we've got the singer and the dancer as entertainment. We've got food as being long lake trout and black Hawksmoor grouse on the spit, very tasty. And then we've got Hawksmoor beer. which is fantastic, which punches a punch. Okay, so I think we've done enough of the kind of setup to get us into that kind of, get us into a good mood. We've had nice food, entertainment, we've got beer. What we need now is some guests. So we're down to the nitty-gritty of the inn. Hopefully I've established a kind of environment. What good's an environment without occupants? So this is where we go to this table. So I've said the occupants are generated using the in generation tables. And again, I know that sounds very grand, but basically it's just some very simple D10 rolls. To generate the in's occupants, use 2 charts for each individual or group. For the number of occupants, checks, roll 2 plus 1 die 4 in villages and 3 plus 1 die 6 in towns. So because we're in a village, we're going to say the number of individuals or groups. Now that's important because there's a little note down here that I'll come to. That determines the numbers of rolls that we do on this table here. So let's establish for the green dragon for tonight who is an occupant. Maybe they're a resident, maybe they're just a local that's come in. Who knows? So because it's a village, we have 2 plus 1 die 4. So we've only got 3, which is probably the minimum that you're going to get. When it comes to the actual restocking, I have a time factor in this as well, that it's never the same from night to night. So if you come back, say, in a couple of nights, we have, say the adventurers went out next morning, they came back about 3 days later. This mix that we generated is going to change. There is a time factor. I'm still kind of that's kind of work in progress, but I do have some ideas about that. It's not applicable to tonight because we've got a 1 night only occupant list. So what we do is that we use this table here. We use a 1d10. And it's made up of the almost like the usual suspects of who you'd expect in an inn. But I do have a special, which is my own table. So as I say, I've used classic things. I don't think I've really veered too far from the spirit of AD&D with these type of individuals. This also tries to follow the spirit of AD&D, because this, what I call men general table, I can show you here what it looks like, and this is probably where we're going to leave it for the time being, because I have just seen how long I've been on talking about this, and it's been quite a long time, so we might just come back and finish this off. But just to give you a heads up, this is my men general table, which would be used on, say, we were out on the highway and we had a men encounter, normal men encounter. That's what this covers. So what I've done is I've gone through the Dungeon Master's Guide, all the different professions and the types of encounters you get in cities and whatever, and I've listed out in alphabetical order all of them, and then I've gone through and added in maybe some other potentially interesting encounters. Now, I have access to all the chivalry and sorcery. Well, I don't actually. I have a download of what some of the chivalry and sorcery information is, and one of them, one of the supplements, which was their source book, had an amazing random encounter table based entirely around a medieval kind of a milieu, and this gave me a lot of ideas about what gaps I should be filling. So I've got things like a physician, which you won't find in AD&D, but you find in chivalry and sorcery. There's also other things, weird things. What have I got? Cultist. it's very fantasy, isn't it? So what I plan to do is, we've got the ball rolling, we've got the green dragon set up, we've got our landlord Fredegar, we've got our landlady Martha, we have an entertainer singing away, everyone's tucking into long lake trout and Hawksmoor grouse. There's Hawksmoor beer on tap. We're just ready to generate the 3 either individuals or they might be in little subgroups. We haven't determined that. So I think I'll just call that a day just now, and then I'll introduce that process in the next session. Okay, well, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.